We need one more announcement here, so we said about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah, that's fine. Any questions from me before we start? Here's we've got a pregnant pause. Put all shout at once. No silence. No questions. That's what I like, no questions. Easy.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you got to say.
Steve, you could have asked a question then.
Yeah.
Help me out. Quiet in here. We'll have to talk till next begin. That's enough.
I'll lock it off now.
Phone's on silent. No streaming live onto the YouTube. Phone's on us. Draw the line at that. Glad you could join us. I think he wanted me to wait for a couple of minutes, but he's on a strict time schedule. And having organised conferences myself, I know how difficult that is to keep to a timetable, so I'm going to start. If there's a flood of people getting in, that's their bad luck. My good luck. Right. I can use a microphone if you want me to, but this is it's quite a small gathering. Can you all hear me at the back of the room?
Yeah.
It just saves me, because it's a handheld one. Do I need it?
I don't think so, no.
Sorry?
You're okay, Darren.
4:30.
Can you hear them all right?
Fish and chips. Right, okay, we're going to start. How many people in this room, other than Steve at the back, who obviously knows me, has seen me lecture before? Stick your hands up in the air. That's what I like to see. Virgin territory. Okay, how many of those people in the room are interested in the subject of UFOs generally? Put your hand up in the air. Right, you'll all be subscribing to the magazine at the end then, will you? Oh, definitely silence there. What an equation, everybody puts hands up, and yet they don't get. Steve, how good's the magazine?
That's the country.
Arguably a lot of people saying now the best in the world. Online magazine. Alright, that's by the by. But indirectly, what I'm going to do is kind of show you, if you are interested, with a genuine interest, and you obviously do whatever you want to do, why you probably should get the magazine if you're interested in the subject. Okay, just another quick question for you. How many people in this room could loosely be described as having had a UFO experience in their lives? Stick your hands up in the air. Okay, quite a few of you. So probably one of the reasons why you come to something like this, because you want to find out a bit more. Is that a fair comment? Yeah. Okay. Now, who am I? For those, because obviously people haven't been aware of me, my name is Gary Haseltine, and I was for 6 years a Royal Air Force policeman, and then I did 24 years almost in the British Transport Police, and for 19 years of that service I was a detective constable, working at the sharp end, working on all manner of inquiries, murder, manslaughter, rape. I was an advanced interviewer of suspects and witnesses. I was involved in the London bombings inquiries, things like that. So a lot of experience. However, when I was 15, I had a sighting of an object which I couldn't explain. Don't know what it is to this day, but it led me to believe that it may be something else. So I began to look at this subject. That's what kicked off my interest. And I'm aware we've only got an hour, so I'm rattling through things. But basically, in 2002, I created an unofficial national database for British police officers who could then report their UFO sightings either on duty or off duty. I started with 6 cases involving 10 officers. 12 years later, I now have over 500 cases, with that to 1901, involving over 1,000 British police officers. That's quite a lot. Alright? Initially, when I started the database, there was a lot of national media because I was a serving police officer doing something a little bit different. But strangely, as I've got more successful, and I've got more police officers to come on board and come forward with their accounts, the less and less the national media are interested in that, which is a strange kind of thing. Normally, if you're successful at anything, you get more attention. But when we look at the way the media treat this subject, it has the opposite effect. They don't want to show you the best evidence. So what is the best evidence of UFOs? Well, it's a question that everybody talks about. And realistically, it's a very frustrating question for me because it's the same questions that have been going on for the last 60 years. And essentially, they've never changed. We have learned in that 60 years tremendous things through dedicated hard work of researchers and scientists. But generally, unfortunately, people in ufology are realistically very poor at coming together as a group to promote their best material, their best evidence. Historically, we're not very good. But actually, when you look at what we would say was evidence, there is actually enormous amount of evidence if you know where to look. And what do I mean by evidence? Well, not one researcher has the luxury anywhere in the world of saying, there's the alien body, took it out from my fridge today, told you it was real. Nobody can do that. No researcher in the world can go, here's my piece of spacecraft, definitive in the world, in the public domain. Remember what I said there? Public domain. There are two worlds of knowledge. There is the public domain, where people go on the record, pilots and things like that, and there is the secret world. The secret world is need to know. The organisers here are military people who are bound by a code of conduct and regulations and oaths about what they can reveal about their classifications, etc., they're bound by it. In the intelligence world, unless you're in it, you will never know what's going on. Does that make sense? Because you don't have the necessary level of clearance to need to know. So there is the public world, which is what I'm in, what you're in, and there's the secret world of governments and military intelligence. Yeah? So I talk about things that are in the public domain. So to draw your best evidence for UFOs, it has to come from the public domain, because I'm never going to know what other stuff's going on. I'm not part of that secret world. Okay? So, for me, the evidence has always been really, really clear. Because in the police, many times people go to court, police officers take people to court on what's called a circumstantial evidence case. Think of it simply, in a murder situation, somebody is accused of murder, but you haven't got the weapon. Yeah? You haven't got the knife or the gun that was used to kill the person. So you've got bits of the story, enough to get somebody charged and go through the court, put before a jury. And they put forward a circumstantial evidence case. So that's what I kind of try to do, look at UFOs. What evidence is there out there that points to something being extraterrestrial? And the nature of my lecture today is things that I think point very definitely that there is an extraterrestrial presence ongoing now, engaging with planet Earth, probably has been doing for a long time, and you the public, are just never really shown that best evidence. The general rule of thumb is that 95% of everything ever reported as a UFO turns out to have a mundane explanation. Atmospheric, meteorological, whatever. Just plain mistake. So you're left with 5%. And then what happens generally is that in that 5% of cases, they're well investigated by the likes of myself, Steve Mear, who's a researcher, and others. And then you dwindle it down to about 3%. So 3% after investigation, universally across the globe, defy explanation. But if it's that 3% of millions of cases, that's quite a few thousand cases that defy explanation. Does that make sense? Okay. So what kind of cases would impress me in terms of evidence? Well, my circumstantial evidence case is based on astronauts, cosmonauts, pilots, commercial and military, radar operators, sonar operators, observer corps, people trained to look at the sky. Those kind of high caliber witnesses who are trained. Yeah? A pilot with millions spent on his flight education should pretty much know what he's chasing. Does that make sense? He should recognise the sky because he'll have flown thousands of hours, etc., etc. That's not to say that any one of us cannot make mistakes, because we are, after all, human. We're not robots. We do make mistakes. But what I'm saying is that in these high caliber witness categories, the odds of them making mistakes comes vastly down. So it's not that 5%. And I would hazard a guess, when you're talking at military pilots who've gone on the record, of which there's about 2,000 military pilots, fighter jet pilots, who've gone on record worldwide and said, I had an encounter, a dogfight with a UFO, structured. Those kind of cases exist, but you're probably not aware of them. I'll highlight some of them today, some of the lesser well-known ones. Alright? 3,000 commercial pilots. How many of us have been on a plane? Stick your hand up in the air if you've ever been on a plane. Okay, thank you? Right, so that's a lot of us, pretty much everybody. What do we give to a pilot when we get on that plane? Think about what we actually give to the pilot when we get on that plane. Anybody with an answer?
We trust in him, aren't we? Get a
Trust, but what? Trust more than that. What's more trust? We trust him to with.
After our lives.
Absolutely, got it in one. That's good. Thank you. When we get on a plane, a passenger plane, we give that pilot our lives in his hands and his aircrew's hands. Does that make sense? So why is it then that the same commercial pilots who've had UFO experiences, where all the flight crew see it and report this, and then still tarred with the same brush that we're all lunatics for believing in UFOs? Does it make sense? We will hand our life over to this responsible person, but when this responsible person has a UFO sighting with his flight engineer, co-pilot, etc., they're pretty much ignored. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. So, a way to illustrate some of these cases is this lecture. Pilot and radar cases. Because you'll understand when I go through them what's involved. A lot of you here, because of the questions that I asked initially, have not done that much research into UFOs. So this may be surprising to you. Okay? Because this is, everything I'm telling you is real, confirmed, corroborated, written form. Alright. 2012, 2nd December. Commercial aircraft. It's flying near Glasgow Airport. When it sees a UFO, a light, that then approaches head-on collision path. Think about that. You're on your plane to space, and the aircrew's flying the plane. There's a light up there coming towards us. You've got seconds to think. This is real. This is no little light in the sky. This is no confused. This is something that's actually very real and has real implications for air safety. If you look out the window, the object passes by below the aircraft. So those who are familiar with things like swamp gas explanations, lighthouses to describe certain things, it was a balloon or something like that. These are the pilots seeing something go down very close to the aircraft. Okay? Seeing for 10 seconds, but 10 seconds is quite a long time. 1. That's 10 seconds. Was that uncomfortable? When somebody comes in your face, think about something that's coming at you, and you've got 10 seconds of seeing it. It's long enough to determine what it is. Okay? When they did a big investigation, because in the UK, things that are unknown like that are referred to the Air Proximity Board, who is like a civilian organisation and check all the facts to determine an outcome. Sometimes there are near misses between proper aircraft. Determine, unknown. But when you label something unknown in UFO terms, it's actually a cop-out in my opinion. Because if you just label something unknown, it doesn't really give you any facts, does it? You should really be making your best guesstimate of what the object was. But the cop-out answer is, don't know what it is. I mean, everything's ruled out. It's not a glider, it's not a plane, it's not a bird. That will just label it unknown. That's convenient, isn't it? Because then they don't actually have to say what it might be to the public. But that's a very real incident. Can you imagine? You're on your plane and suddenly your plane veers away. People have got hurt in similar incidents where the pilot has had to make avoiding action and they've suddenly dived or gone left or gone right and the crew are walking around. Can you imagine? You drink out of your plane, having a drink, walking down the aisle, seatbelts off, and then all of a sudden people have got injured to avoid what they thought were real-time collisions. So this is very definitely real. This is not what you see on Doctor Who. This is real. This comes from Brazil. Military pilot. 2004. Flying a jet, sees a yellow golden light. He's been vectored to go towards that aircraft. It's on radar. Confirmed. So what generally happens, if something's, say, in our airspace now flying above Derby, and they didn't know what it was, the local RAF station with fighters would receive an alert, and the alert would send up 1 or 2 fighters to go chase the unknown object, or not chase, but identify. And ordinarily it will be some light plane that's flown into a restricted area. Solved. But on many occasions, as we shall see, pairs of UFOs, pairs of fighter aircraft are sent up to intercept confirmed radar UFOs, structured objects, sometimes machines, sometimes just lights, sometimes just odd shapes. But literally something there on radar, they're vectored towards it, and as soon as they get close to it, UFO goes streaking off, and the planes do not get anywhere near. So, this pilot, he has this experience. He sees this golden light confirmed on radar. Tries to close on it, but as he closes, as he increases his speed, the UFO goes, hey, I see you coming, I'm increasing my speed. Increases his speed, UFO does the same. So you don't ever actually make any closure, no gap closed. Cannot compete with the speed and movement of the UFO. Now think about this. That shouldn't happen, should it? We'll talk about stealth later on, but it shouldn't happen. These fighter jets should be able to catch whatever's in space, shouldn't they? In our airspace. That's what they're there for. But they're being outmanoeuvred, outthought by some, what I would say was clear intelligence. If I've got a knife in this audience now, and I threaten you in the audience, I'm just picking on you, back to the front. But if I was to threaten you, I'm going to kill you, you could decide to run away if I was approaching. Yeah? Because you don't want to get stabbed. That would be an intelligence avoidance, an intelligent action. Threat, I'm getting out of the way. Yes? That's what we'd all hope to do. So, UFO seen and confirmed on radar, planes fly up, can't get near it, it's taking avoiding action. To me, that shows clear thought process, intelligent avoidance. Yeah? We're being seen, pilots are coming, oh, best get out of the way. This is in Brazil as well, it's the second case, very similar. Pilot directed to a confirmed target. As he increases speed, UFO increases its speed. Now what happens is during his 2 minutes, it was initially seen stationary target. So he's thinking it'll be a balloon or something like that. So as he goes towards it, then starts speeding up. It was initially seen stationary on radar. However, as soon as he gets close to it and he starts taking off, disappears off radar. So this object is taking avoidance action, but it's also got the ability to make itself radar invisible to the ground. So that technology is aware in the same way that we try to do stealth now. We'll talk about stealth in a bit. So this is a very similar. He tries to pursue it in his S.P.I, I think it is, and he can't get anywhere near it. Outmaneuvers it, can't make any dent in the distance. Military pilot with thousands of hours of flight education, and they just don't know what these things are. But they certainly don't think that they're any of ours, because there is nothing that we can do to replicate. And we'll go through some older cases that confirms this. 1967. Now this is a little bit different. Apart from Steve in the room will have read this in the magazine, this is an absolutely weird case. But a colleague of mine, Alan Foster, the researcher there, he does many lectures, and he's approached by a merchant seaman. And basically, in 1967, they get a radar confirmation that there is an object approaching their ship, merchant ship. And they've got a helipad on the ship. So they think it's a helicopter. This is radar only. However, when they look out, they can't see anything. But something's still showing up on radar that says something is coming. And then guess what? A ship, big ship, merchant ship, suddenly has something pressing down on the ship from above, in the vicinity of the helipad. So you've got your flat helipad, there's the flat helipad on the ship, something then starts to exert force downwards, which pushes the ship down 14.5 feet in the water. So you imagine you're in your bath and you've got your plastic toy, and you push it down a long way. Yeah? It drops in the water 14.5 feet. And yet, they can't see a thing. Somebody goes out to the helipad and throws a spanner onto the helipad, and it goes bang! Well, nothing is seen. Somebody then gets a Coke bottle and throws it, and it hits with an audible thud. But nothing is seen. And then suddenly, the ship rises 14.5 feet out of the water and is gone. And yet, the objects thrown confirmed that there was something there that was invisible to us in our visible spectrum, and it was calculated that to displace the ship of that size down into the water by 14.5 feet, that the weight pushed down was 29 to 32,000 tons of pressure. Now, what can we do in our secret world that could do that? I hazard a guess, none. As a comparison, a fully laden 737 passenger aircraft, complete with all its suitcases and cargo, only weighs 110 tons. So what the hell depressed that ship down 29 to 32,000 tons of weight? An amazing case. It's like science fiction, but it's not. People come forward with it. That's the only one where I'm deviating away from pilots, but I thought this is just such an unusual case. But because of the corroboration of the thuds and the bangs and the radar, it's a very real event. God knows what it was, but it's certainly one of ours. Okay, back to pilots. Oh, that's the latter part of it. Okay. Two of the columnists for the magazine, Carl Nally and Dermot Butler, they live in the Republic of Ireland, and they do great work, and they've had a lot of experience of commercial pilots approaching them with cases. Okay? And this is one, 2004. Basically, plane with 135 passengers. Alright, it's an Airbus. Right. They're at 3,000 feet in Ace Lane. I don't know that area personally. What happens is that as they're coming in, there's another plane behind them. So there's two planes. And basically, the plane behind the one that's just taken off sees an object rise from the ground. So this is not from the air. This is not a balloon. This is something rising from the ground. And the plane behind the first plane is not aware of this initially. But the plane behind is seeing this object rising from the ground. And it then begins to circle, as you do in pilot terms, circle around the first plane. We then obviously get a visual on it themselves. Alright? The pilot asks the air traffic to get a vector to move away. The object veers away. Okay? All confirmed on radar. So if you think about this case, you've got two crews in the cockpit, flight engineer, co-pilot, pilot, two crews, that's 6 people at least, viewing the UFO. We've got a UFO circling around the lead aircraft, coming from the ground, all confirmed on radar. That should make the 6 o'clock news, don't you think? But it doesn't, does it? And the other thing with this is, when the UFO departed, and it got very close to the plane, the heat sensors outside suddenly spiked to 164 degrees. So when the UFO got close to the aircraft, it interfered with its instruments, and there was a massive spike in the heat outside. Don't know why. Maybe it's something to do with the object propulsion system, I don't know. But it went very high. But even more amazing is that when it left, it created a wake of turbulence. You know, like a car just breezes past you, or a train and you're stood close to it, well, that turbulence, that wind shear afterwards, when the plane landed, as a result of having this encounter with the UFO, it was found that the wings were actually damaged. As if somebody got a hammer and started pummeling, battering it, little dints all over it. Such was the force of the turbulence caused by the UFO. So here we are, passenger plane being essentially attacked, damaged by UFO. Should that not make the 6 o'clock news? But it doesn't, does it? This is another question. Another case from Cyprus, great case, involving an English electric lightning, which was a very fast jet, 1960s, I think it was 65, 66 jet. Basically, people in the air traffic control tower didn't see it on radar, but had a visual. Somebody said, "What's that?" And it looked like it was a balloon at about 1,500 feet. But it was inverted, like an inverted cone, ice cream cone, and it was just hovering there. And they thought it was a balloon. So they said, right, it's about 1,500 feet, go check it out. So the pilot rose up in his lightning, and he's thinking, I'll be there in 2 seconds. But as he tries to close the gap, the object moves at the same speed, he can never close the gap, and he goes from 5,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 25,000 feet, 30,000 feet, 35,000 feet, 40,000 feet. He has to go supersonic, because he still can't get close to it. So this object's still going up towards space, he's chasing it. Military pilot, 50,000 feet. He goes to his limit, 60,000 feet for an English electric. Lightning, in the 60s. That's high. It's the edge of space, and he still couldn't close the gap on this object. Which he then, by then, because of the clear dark blue sky, because it's the edge of space, he could see was well above him, but he could now see more clearly. And he described it as a metallic, upturned cone, like an ice cream. Metallic, so we're talking something machine. But it certainly doesn't bear any looks like our spacecraft. And when Ariet Akrotiri and the other base, I'm not sure which it was, triangulated its position in the sky, they plotted that it was at 168,000 feet. That's virtually low Earth orbit, where the ISS is. So he had to call a halt at his maximum limit, 60,000. And this object had been hovering over the base, and he's followed it and followed it and followed it. Military pilot sees machine, 1960s. Well, really, the only thing flying stealth-wise in the 60s was the U-2 spy plane, which was long and had big long wings, right? Think about stealth. We said we'd talk about stealth. People go, oh, it's stealth. But they don't understand what they're saying. What does a stealth plane do? A stealth plane does this. Even now, even the best stealth planes now, they go, runway, need a runway, take off. Oh, you can't see, I'm on radar invisible. I'm on my mission, I'll drop a few bombs, do a bit of surveillance, and then I need my runway, I'm going to land. They don't stop and hover, they don't make right angle turns, they don't go straight up, straight down, don't make reversals, don't make right angles. Not stealth. Yeah? And the only really stealth plane then, and we know it now, because stealth is generally about 15 years ahead of us in terms of being published. So, if we knew of secret aircraft in the 60s, we'd have found about it in the maybe 1980s. If you think about the F-117, the little back wing seen first in the Gulf, that first flew in 1971, 75, and yet we didn't come aware of it until the first Gulf War, 15, 16 years later. So in theory, whatever, if this was a stealth that could go up to 168,000, it looked like an ice cream cone, we should have found out about what that is from the records in about 1980. Does that make sense? But here we are, 34 years later, and we haven't. And it's because we haven't got it. Never had it. This points to something going out in space. Oh, great case. And that's basically what he said. He says he's flying above Cyprus. That's just a representation. This is Cyprus there. And he's at 60,000 feet, and he's on the edge of space. And he's looking at a metallic object that's acted intelligently to avoid his pursuit. Iron towers. Can't explain that. And would it be wrong just to say unknown? Because that doesn't tell you the facts, does it? Around what made it unknown. It's a cop-out unknown, which gives the best estimate. 168,000. And yet when he landed, the pilot was basically told, yeah, you don't really want to report this, do you? Nah, you don't really want to report this. And he actually checked, and the flight logs, his aircraft having taken off that day, never existed. Airbrushed out of history. And that's what they do. For researchers who deal with aircraft cases, so often the logs are changed. They change the books. The air traffic control tower logs are changed. Oh no, we never had that. And yet they might have told somebody who's rang up, yeah, it's confirmed on radar. And then it all changes. So this people come in and actually just, we don't want to release this. This is a case that might make the press. Oof, we don't want that on the news, do we? 168,000 feet metallic cone-shaped object. Don't want that. See what I mean? So when people talk about media, is there a clampdown? Well, I would argue that every one of these cases should have been on the 6 o'clock news. You didn't hear about any of these. So is the media cover up? Got to be. Makes sense. Another case, Republic of Ireland. They've had some great cases. Basically, this is a UFO that they see 11 objects in the sky in various groups. And basically 3 of them kind of like split away from the 11, and they get into a bit of a situation where they come very close to the aircraft. Confirmed on radar. It was so bad, the turbulence, when the object came close to the aircraft, within feet, we're talking from me to the 3rd row, that's how close, 15 feet, the pilot thought he was going to die. The aircrew, the pilot actually vomited because he thought he was going to die. You don't hear about that on your trip to Spain, yeah. Again, that should make the news, it doesn't. Oh, and that's the interesting one. They actually asked the RAF to intercept, and they send up 2 jets, and the 2 jets can't get anywhere near this object. So they just basically watch, can't do anything until the object decides to go. Now, does that sound, would they do that if this was a Russian Bear surveillance plane? Because you hear about this all the time, don't you? They make the secret flights over Britain on surveillance. Russians send over a bomber, big bomber, and the planes escort it out of our airspace. Come on, we've been seen, get out of our airspace. These jets sent up to do that in theory can't get anywhere near the UFOs in this case. They just have to watch. Can't do anything. And that's basically the situation where we're at. Our best fighter jets cannot get anywhere near genuine UFOs. Their technology is far in advance of ours. Nowhere near. Should make the news. Another one. Commercial airline. 120 passengers. They see the object and they manage to get a photograph, but the photograph doesn't come out. So some people might say that that's either just bad camera work, unlucky, or the fact that maybe there was some energy, some radiation that blows it out, doesn't come out. But again, 2 Super Sabres, these aircraft, sent up to intercept. Can't get anywhere near it. They're trying closing, can't get anywhere near it. And what's interesting is that when they land, the crew are interviewed by a British guy who they suspect is MOD, who said, don't tell anybody about this. Well, if UFOs are nothing, it's all Looney Tunes stuff, why does that happen? It happens because there is something to cover up, that they exist, and they're regularly getting our airspace. I went to Australia, gave a lecture in Australia earlier this year, and somebody from out the audience came up to me, this guy, and he said, when I was a spotter, he was in the Australian Police, New South Wales, and basically he was a spotter on a helicopter, police helicopter, and whilst they're on a routine mission, he just catches a glimpse of this object, like a curved tube, descending into a cloud. Only sees it briefly, but he says after 1,000 hours, he said, never seen anything like it. He says, nobody else saw it, I just saw it. Didn't say anything, so he didn't want to get ribbed or anything, but he came to me and he gave me this report. And this is his report in the magazine. Now, he described it as being 3 to 4 metres, what he saw, descending. But that doesn't look like a helicopter, doesn't look like, at the altitude is that, doesn't look like a paraglider, hang glider, paraglider, anything. How many flying tubes, curved tubes do we have flying in the sky? The answer is no. So a very interesting little sighting there. Another one, this is from New Zealand. Commercial pilot, Captain Richardson, flying his plane. And he's initially at 33,000 feet over Samoa, and he spots a light moving towards his aircraft. He's thinking, I've got to get out of the way of this. As it moves in front of his aircraft, veers off in front of his aircraft, he sees it clearly. And he describes it like that. 150 feet long, cylindrical object with no engines, no wings, no tail. 150 feet long. And what was interesting in this particular one, as it went past very close, there was no turbulence whatsoever. Which is odd. Normally there would be a turbulence. He did not make an official report until many years later when he retired, because he feared that if he did, and like most pilots, they fear that if they come forward and say, actually, I'm flying from New York to London, we saw this, they might get grounded. Pilots have been grounded because they're deemed psychologically not quite stable, just for reporting that they've seen a UFO. No matter what the evidence is. Now, if you've got a mortgage and kids, and you enjoy flying, you don't want to do anything that spoils your job. So a lot of them keep quiet. In fact, early on, in the 50s and 60s, the American Air Force brought in regulations at the fine of £10,000 for a pilot, $10,000, if a pilot reported seeing a UFO, because they were trying to debunk everything inside, even pilots. That's not right. This is an old case, July 1952. Roland Hughes, flight sergeant, flying a vampire. Was it a vampire? Yeah, vampire. And basically, here's the UFO encounter with a structured, classic flying saucer disc, metallic silver disc. Well, this is daytime. And he sees it, and he reports it, and it actually goes all the way up to the defence minister, who is so impressed with this story, he tells people in government. And hence why there was a story, this was the sighting that convinced the government minister that UFOs were real. It was such a good sighting. Can you imagine, you're flying along in your plane, and then suddenly, whoa, just where you are, there's a big disc right next to you. Whoa! Can you imagine how frightening that would be let alone the close proximity. Is it going to touch the wing? Am I going to crash? Fall out of the sky? Why is he going to make that up? He's not. This one, this is from Portugal. This is a great case. 4 pilots on a routine training mission. So they're flying from A to B on a routine mission. They're on the way back. They're actually flying from Portugal to Spain, to Granada in Spain, and then Granada back to their base in Portugal. On the way back, they suddenly see all of them alight ahead of them. And they're thinking, is that a star, is that a meteor, or what? They're going through all the normal conventional explanations, and basically, they don't know what it is. But then the object changes. Grows in size. And then it goes smaller. Grows in size. And smaller. And then, it does this. The main object bends like a worm. And then from it, 4 smaller objects come out of the main object and fly around it. At which point, the squadron leader is thinking, I don't like this, I'm going back to base. And he abandons the mission. And they land. This guy, Lemos Ferreira, went on to become a general, head of the Air Force in Portugal. And there he is on record, saying he's had this encounter with something. How many things can divide and change shape in mid-air that we can do? And the answer is none. Yeah, you can have a tornado, and it's got its wings there, and then it can put them back, change its angle. But that's all it can do. It can't morph like Transformers, but these things can. So I ain't one about it. This is a great case. And this is, again, not reported by a pilot. This is a military guy who's based at CFS Alert, Antarctic, kind of like weather station. 40 people in the middle of nowhere. The nearest place of habitation is 400 miles one way, 400 miles the other way. So they're in the middle of nowhere. Snow everywhere. Most of the year it's pitch black. Virtual 24-hour darkness. Nothing to see. Finally, the weather clears a bit, snowstorms, etc. And the base commander says, come on, a few of you lads, come out for a hike, we'll have a hike on the snow. And when they're out in the snow, so imagine pitch black, and they're having a hike, just to get away, just to stretch the legs kind of thing. And as they look back at the base, suddenly, the whole base, you imagine like you see in the thing, little base in the snow, little few buildings, lights up like daylight, and they see a huge object directly over the main part of the base. But it lights it up like floodlights, like it was daytime. And actually the people who were in the cafeteria inside just thought somebody had put on the floodlights outside. They didn't realise. But the people outside who were on the hike were looking back at this huge object over where the cafeteria and the base was. Can you imagine that scene? And it's only when they came back in and they were actually shocked by what they'd seen did they relate the story. But a funny thing happened. Within hours of that event, a colonel flew to the base. This is not somewhere like, well, I'll just drive down to Derby from Manchester. He flies to the base. The colonel arrives on the base, who basically tells them all, you keep quiet. And he confided to the base commander, who took the team out in the first place, that this was the most serious breach of air safety in that area ever for that base. Now, that's not us, is it? Yeah? And they described it as a 200-foot cylinder, huge cylindrical object over the base. No wings, no superstructure, no engines. We can't do anything like that. Okay? Great test. Again, Republic of Ireland. They've actually got a very good book about these pilot encounters. And I'll tell you about that later. Okay. 2003. basically an object is seen, accelerates above the aircraft. Initially seen below, goes higher than the plane. Goes up to 41,000 feet, and if an intercept situation occurs, we can't get anywhere near it. When the crew lands, they're basically told, no, I don't think you should report this. Why? What have we got to hide? Only one obvious reason, and that's people in the intelligence government circles don't want these very compelling cases to be reported, which all goes to prove that there is something not quite right with the way this subject is treated. Effectively, they're silenced. They also want to mention another case, County Meath. See 3 lights at 17,000 feet, and what they say is they saw a 600-foot wide triangular UFO. Now, many people are aware that triangles are quite often seen now. Massive. Now, people will go, oh, this is the TRPB, an alleged man-made UFO. Maybe it was, but I suspect that it's not. Because why would you test your 600-foot man-made triangular aircraft where it can be seen, when presumably it's secret? You don't want it seen. The last thing you want to do is frighten people and have it be seen. That's the idea of surveillance. It makes sense. Okay? So to me, I see no reason. We may have got man-made UFOs. I suspect that we have, but I don't suspect we've got many. And what we have will be the US owned, and they will not operate overseas that much, unless there's some real major reason. Certainly not going to start buzzing our commercial flights with passengers. Why would they? One of these days they might just hit one, and what a hoo-ha that would be. This is a good case. Just after the Second World War, there was a major operation. This is the onset of the Cold War. And they had what's called Operation Mainbrace. And I think it involved over 200 ships, 80,000 men, and 1,000 aircraft on a big military exercise. And it's well known that several UFOs were seen in the vicinity of all these military manoeuvres, as if they're like keeping an eye on what's going on. All documented. But this one was good because it's 6 planes see a UFO. But unfortunately they can't get anywhere near. Radar confirmed. But the thing was, where did the UFO come from? It came from the water. You know, you see the Polaris missile come out from the submarine, trying missile. No. Like that, UFOs, and probably not many of you will be aware, that many UFOs worldwide are seen by military vessels, aircraft, entering the water and leaving the water. All documented, all on the record. Do you ever hear it on the television? No, you don't. The question is why? Okay? This is a famous night. It's called the Night of the UFO. And that's what the Brazilian Air Force nicknamed it, the Night of the UFO. When basically they had multiple UFOs seen in the skies above Brazil. And they send up interceptors and they can't get anywhere near. Yeah? The activity in the sky lasted 8 hours. They couldn't get anywhere near. And we know this happened because they've actually published, just recently, the actual details confirming these cases. Yeah? So what we knew of already is now being confirmed with written accounts released by the Brazilian Air Force, who are actually working with a guy called A.J. Javard and his team of researchers. Right? And they've actually developed over the last 3 years an actual sit-down meeting with government ministers and Air Force senior military officers. And they've got set protocols, and part of it was to release information like this, which they've just started to do. This is actually amazing, factual, documented cases of things that shouldn't exist but in reality do. Okay? Another UK one. 2014. Some of you may have read about this on the internet. It's called Flying Man. It goes past aeroplane. You know, like you see these people go like that? Well, this was seen by a crew. Something shot past the plane. Small, shot past the plane. But when they checked with all the societies and they checked it against the meteorological conditions of the day, they all said, no, nobody could fly in those conditions. It's too turbulent, blah, blah, blah. So that's ruled out. So what flew past that plane at speed? This is over Macclesfield, believe it or not.
It looked like a human, didn't it?
Yeah, that's what he was trying to fly a human, but they're literally a few seconds. But what I'm saying is, something flew past. It can't have been a human that we're aware of, because of the flight conditions. All the local groups said you couldn't fly in those conditions, too dangerous, and it was in the airspace corridor. Why would you fly in the corridor where you could get hit by a plane? So it's unknown. That really is an unknown. But the point is, this is just an interesting one, that it's very recent, and it just shows you that pilots and aircrew are seeing things like that. We don't know what it is. And the Air Force Board, they investigate, they just label it unknown. That's not good enough. These are unknown objects that have to be explained with the best guesstimate. Just to label them as unknown is a cop-out. Easy for them. So, that's all the cases that I'm going to talk about there. It's only an hour's lecture. I could normally talk for a lot longer. But realistically, what I'm saying is, in summing up, is this is just a handful of cases, just in the magazine that I produce, which features all the top people, top researchers from around the world, from South America, New Zealand, Australia, Europe, UK, the States. If you're interested, you should go to a magazine that's showing you the best evidence. And obviously, as a former police officer, that's all I can do, is talk about the evidence. Yeah? So, all the people that stuck up their hand and say, I'm interested in UFOs, I can't tell you what to do, but if you're interested, you should go to somebody like me, not just because it's for money, because I don't do it for money, I do it for the passion, to try to get the information out there. If you buy into the magazine, what makes it different is I want to make a difference. And how do I make a difference? Well, a third of all the money that's raised through subscriptions is automatically ring-fenced for UFO causes. If you run a business, you don't give a third of your profits away, do you? If I was interested in money, I wouldn't give a third of my money away, would I? But that's what I'm doing, because I want to make a difference. It's already funded 2 conferences. I live in Holmfirth, which is not a million miles away from Derby, and there's a 2-day conference in September where this AJ Jabard, who's the top guy in Brazil, he's coming, flying him in, he's funding that, and the top person in the world, arguably the most famous living ufologist, a guy called Stanton Friedman, who's 80 years old, but he was a nuclear physicist, worked on the Gemini space program for Westinghouse, a top guy, but since about 1975 he's been researching UFOs, because he realised that the public were being deceived when he came across what was called the Battelle Institute report, special report number 14. Anybody that's followed the subject knows that on the public face, between 1947 and 1969, the Air Force, through various names, ran projects to research UFOs, allegedly. It was a public information exercise. But realistically, in amongst these reports, there was some real nuggets. And he found that in special report number 14, 20% of sightings couldn't be explained. And he's thinking, I'm a nuclear physicist, why haven't I been told this? And that's when he decided to become a UFO researcher. Right, in the short time now, we've got 5 minutes before we break. Is there any questions, quickly, that you want to ask? Stick your hands up.
In your opinion, why do you think the government is so keen on keeping it all covered up?
Dead easy. Loss of power.
Yeah.
Loss of power. Think about it this way. Barack Obama, president of supposedly the only superpower, although I think India and Russia might argue, etc. But basically the only superpower now. would he stand up at his lectern on the White House lawn and say, ladies and gentlemen, I have to report that actually these things have been around for 60 odd years, we've been lying to you for 60 odd years, and we can't get anywhere near them, and our technology is so far inferior. Would they still be that superpower if he made that announcement? Would all the armament contracts that support hundreds of thousands of jobs in the American market? Because they supply weapons to everybody, don't they, the Americans? It's the American organisers here, but they do. They've got the fingers of pies everywhere with armaments. Would they be that superpower if they suddenly come out and say, well, actually, these things are real, we can't get anywhere near them. All our stuff's obsolete against them. They're not the superpower then, so it's loss of power. America wants to be top dog. And in reality, in the UFO field, America is the most secretive government in the world on UFOs, and has been always. Britain, because of our special historical relationship with America, is arguably the second most secretive government in the world on UFOs. Just as an interesting aside, you know, are you aware that, like between 2008 and 2013, I think it was, the British government said, we're releasing all of our UFO documents. Do you remember in the public? You see updates every 6 months. All low-level stuff. Some occasional good nuggets in it, but generally all correspondence, low-level stuff. Real researchers suspected that there was a lot more. A guy called John Burroughs, who was a UFO witness to the Rendlesham Forest incident, which you're probably not aware of, but a major case. But basically he put in a Freedom of Information Act request earlier, I think in the last 6 months, and somebody made a mistake at the MOD, and they actually acknowledged that we've got more files. Policy files on UFOs going back years and years. 18 more files. But they made such a big thing of, well, yeah, we've released all the files, that's it, no more. Only 18 months earlier. And then suddenly we've got another 18. Well, actually we've just found some more. How many others have they just not told us about? And that's the nature of government. Okay? So, and also if you think about it, if I was to invent a car that ran on fresh air today, I'd patent it, and I'd go to the oil companies and say, hey, the car that runs on fresh air, and it costs you no free energy.
That's what I think we probably already got that already.
We probably have. On patents, it probably does exist. But you're not going to do it. Why? There's no money in free energy, is there? So the oil companies going to appreciate me and all their vast billions of revenue, and look how much money they make. Are they going to say, oh no, we'll give our petrol away free now? The world doesn't work like that. It would be it would be deemed as a threat to them. Therefore, they'll probably say, Mr. Haseltine, there you go, there's £5 million for your patent. Thanks very much. But you could sign this disclosure, non-disclosure, you can never use it again, never talk about it again, but there's your £5 million. That happens. Patents are bought to silence people. Okay? And the technology is never used, so we still have the gas guzzling cars, and we're still driving around. I mean, think about some of the flight characteristics that I've described in all these pilot cases. If we were producing that in the 50s, why are we still flying around in jet engines, costing thousands of fuel? Thousands of litres of fuel per flight. How stupid would that be? They're not doing this for our benefit. They may well have tried to, like I said to some people, if a UFO crashed outside now, we'd all go look. It would get reported to the police come down, start putting the cordon in, because it's that kind of thing. The military are going to come down, keep the public away, whatever it crashes gets taken away. If that happened, are you telling me that the British government won't want to try to make that craft work for us? So we suddenly become technologically, whoa, we've got this. So think about Roswell in 47, which I believe was entirely real. Object crash, UFO crash. They take it, and what they do is they compartmentalise it. They don't know how it works, but they then go to leading companies, and this is lots of people have gone on record about this. They go to the top engineers and say, right, your company, here's a little bit of equipment, not telling you where it's from, but try to make that work. Go to another top company. There's a little bit of equipment to try to make that work. They're not aware that what he's doing, and vice versa. You do this to probably about 10 different big corporations. Eventually one of them goes, yeah, we've got this working. Well, this is allegedly where the circuit come from, integrated circuit came from. fibre optics came from, night vision is supposedly from retrieved crashed material. And believe me, I don't know that's for certain, but believe me that if it crashed outside, that's what we'd be trying to do. I was in the Air Force, that's what we'd be trying to do. No shadow of a doubt. Why? Because of power. If you can utilise that technology, you suddenly become the most powerful country in the world. And would they sell it to the others? No, they wouldn't. So if the Americans have got that, they ain't going to be flying all over the place. Only for themselves. I do suspect we have got some man-made UFOs, but I don't suspect it's not many. And they're certainly not going to do outrageous manoeuvres trying to attack aircraft on collision courses. Makes no sense. If something's stealthy by nature, you keep it secret. You don't go overt with it, do you? You don't lose it. Alright. Any more questions before we finish now? Oh, here we go.
UK sightings, are they random or are they hotspotted?
If you look at the subject historically over many years, it would appear that there is some good guess that says that some UFOs are drawn to nuclear facilities. There's a long history, right from 50s onwards, or from the 40s. Think about Roswell. People go, why Roswell, New Mexico? It only is the first atomic bomb squadron. It's the only place in the world where atomic weapons were on a squadron of aircraft. Doesn't that tell you that they thought, oh, what the heck are these? When they come to look, is it any wonder it's Roswell? You don't just get a dart and go, throw it at the dartboard, and it just lands in Roswell. It's no coincidence. That was the world's first atomic bomb squadron. Okay, that question at the back.
What's your thoughts on Area 52 and Area 51? You reckon one's a smoke screen for another one recently?
Well, I suspect that Area 51 has been doing lots of stealthy stuff, and yes, we've had various so-called whistleblowers who claim to have worked in Area 51 that say, like Bob Lazar will say, that he's worked on reverse engineered and alien craft. That may well be true, but if you had a facility that gained that kind of reputation, you'd move it. And you put front on.
Area 52 is that?
Well, I suspect that they'll just buy up a few 1,000 miles of range somewhere and just move something. Just as an aside there, Britain's most famous case is the Rendlesham Forest incident involving US Air Force security at a nuclear base, Bentwaters and Woodbridge, twin bases, in 1980. It's all about nuclear weapons, 3 successive nights of UFO activity. It's Britain's most famous case, and it's now arguably the best case in the world, even better than Roswell, because there's documentation.
I read something recently about that. There's one guy who supposedly come forward and said that he physically touched the craft and he got something information implanted into his brain. Is there any
binary code?
Yeah, binary. Yeah. Because they were working on what it meant, the code or something.
I know that you want to break it now because I'm getting the evil eye from now. Basically, in answer to your question, it's quite a long, complicated answer, but one of the original witnesses, Jim Penniston, did touch the craft. There was a triangular craft that landed. It's confirmed in the Holt Memorandum, which is the Deputy Base Commander of a nuclear facility, saying he wrote it, and on the first paragraph he says that a triangular UFO, about 3 metres by 3 metres, landed in the forest. It left ground impressions, and then 2 nights later he and his team, Deputy Base Commander, see a UFO, follow it through the trees. They see then multiple UFOs. One object dissolves into 5 objects that then disappear, and then they see more. So it's a really good case. Deputy Base Commander writes this report, very famous report. The reality is that 30 years on from that, in 2010, Jim Penniston, who was a good witness up to that point, suddenly says to his colleague who was with him at the time, just 2 months before, in October 2010, says, I touched the craft and I got all these zeros and ones. Personally, I'm very suspicious why he hung on to that for 30 years. Personally, I suspect that he's lying, and he's doing it for money. However, it's not to say that it can't be true, but he has to release all the information in his pocketbook, because he wrote it all down in his police pocketbook, and he has to release it to independent researchers, several sets, and they should all compute the same 16 pages of information. And if they're reading binary code right, they should all get the same answer.
There's something about time travelers from the future.
Yeah, he's trying to say it's time travel in the future. I personally am very suspicious. He only told, the guy who was with him in the forest is the one person he could have told, who he wouldn't have thought was crazy, because he was right next to him, he had his experiences. Didn't tell him until 2 months before he announced it to the public. And his body language is all wrong. I was an expert in body language, and he was very surly when he announced it. People were very angry, why have you done this for 30 years? And the bottom line is, I'm very suspicious of it, but you have to release it to have any validity. Right, we've now run 5 minutes over.
But Gary, if anybody wants to follow you or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll be out in the lobby in the corner, you've seen me there. Now, you should all go, yes, I will buy his magazine.
But do you have Facebook or Twitter or something like that?
Yeah, we got magazines, there's cards out there. If you do it all online, you don't have to get it at discount. You can get it today, get it £3 cheaper. It's a magazine, 96 pages, features the top people in the world, and it's sent direct to your email address. To be read on tablets, it's not in print form, but arguably it's now regarded as the best UFO magazine in the world.
Okay, well,
That's what
thank you
people
very
tell
much
me.
for coming here. I mean, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody, what we're going to do is take a dinner break, and at 7 o'clock, we'll have all of these guests that we've had today and some that are coming tomorrow up here for a question and answer. So at 7 o'clock, if you can make it back here to the theater, we'll have them all lined up. You guys can ask a question, and you can get an opinion from 5 or 6 people about this one thing.
Do you want me to be a part of that?
Oh, yeah.
7 o'clock today.
Oh, yeah.